Somebody who believes that America should come first.
Not women for the draft.
You have the free
feminists.
speech to say that, but you're going to get punched in your face.
You can't pick and choose the things that you want equality.
You know what we need is reparations for all those doors we've
That
opened.
doesn't make
White people are scared to be white.
You don't point that out.
You see, you won't even say it. It's funny because it's true.
Welcome to Millennially Challenge for Sunday, January 1st, 2017. Happy New Year, everybody. I'm David.
And I'm Greg. Happy New Year. So, Davey, today I wanted to talk about if you pull up the most comprehensive assault on global warming ever by Mike Van Biesen. This is a Daily Wire article. I know, fake news.
Of course.
So, I read most of the article, but something that me and Davey talked about before, Davey, was that we're not sure on global warming. We don't know if it's a hoax. We think it might be. There's a lot of evidence both ways. Something that people claim on the skeptic side is that the data has been adjusted by NASA before presenting it, and then all of their analyses are based on adjusted data, which is giving a misperception.
Okay,
so
but
number
what's the
10
problem
on
with
this list,
adjusting the data? Because isn't that a standard thing to do in a scientific study?
I think that adjusting the data across the board is okay in some circumstances, if you give a reason why, too. You can't just say, here was our raw data, and then we use
You can't
this
just
data
throw
instead.
random numbers into it to make it meet what you're trying to have it say.
No, and I hope that's not what they did, but this thing is claiming, of course, that that's what they did. So let me read some of the key points from this.
Okay.
So what I was saying is that this is one of the points that you and I talked about being, this would really solidify the hoax case if it was true.
Yeah.
That they were adjusting their data, and they were only adjusting some of their data some of the time to make it, how they wanted it to show. So, sorry. So this guy says, I relied on the climate data banks of NASA and GISS, two of the most prestigious scientific bodies of our country. After gathering data, I found that I wasn't looking at original data, but adjusted data for what they deemed scientific reasons. So for scientific reasons, that's what their reasoning was for adjusting the data.
So
And they
what
did
would be
not-
like a scientific reason? So they had a thermometer back in 1906 that they no longer have, and so that they're not measuring at that particular location, and now all of a sudden they're just going to assume data. Is that what that means?
It could mean that, or it could be legitimate. Like, for example, they could say this thermometer was patently false or something. But it's like, well, then why would you adjust it? Why wouldn't you just throw it out?
That would invalidate all the results prior to, in addition to subsequent.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it could be something like, since it was a particularly hot year. I mean, I don't know.
I feel like it's been a colder year than normal. We haven't had as cold a winter. I mean, as cold a Christmas in, I can't even tell you how long. It seemed really cold this year.
Yeah,
the summer was
global
even
warming.
mild. And then I read a report not that long ago saying hottest year on record, hottest June on record, hottest July on record, hottest August on record. I'm not even sure if I can trust that information because
You can't.
me personally, I feel like it was way cooler this year than it was in prior years to this. Maybe if it was last year or the year before that, I might be on board with that. But this year, no way. It was way cooler this year than it was last year.
Yes, but be careful. Don't use anecdotal evidence to show your case, which is what the left does a lot. So
Well,
I
I mean-
agree with you because we live in the same area. So it was particularly cold this year, especially relative to last year, which was ridiculously hot
Yeah, last year
during the
was very
summer.
hot.
When I say last year, I mean 2015, not 16.
Yeah. We're only one day into 2017, so we're still
Yeah,
still
exactly.
in 2016 mode.
So he said he was looking at unadjusted data and he couldn't get the unadjusted data, but he found the original data in 7,000 weather stations around the world in the Royal Dutch Meteorological Institute. He says, there I was able to review both the adjusted and unadjusted data, as well as the breakout of daytime and nighttime data. The results are astounding. I found that data from many stations around the world had been systematically adjusted to make it seem that global warming was happening, when in fact, for many places around the world, the opposite was true. Following
I think even in that article, it says something like the 1.5 Fahrenheit degree increase over the past century, 100% of that 1.5% or that 1.5 degree increase can be attributed to the adjusted numbers. None of the actual measured numbers that were used in any of the studies showed any significant increase or decrease in global temperatures.
Where does
the
it say
only
that?
way that you got to to global warming, the only way that you can get to the conclusion of global warming is if you use the adjusted data, which is just assumed, can be manipulated any way that they want in order to, to prove whatever point they want to prove.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's crazy.
It says that in this article, Davey? Or you found that somewhere else?
I think it might have been in that article. It was something that you sent to me this last week.
Okay. So he continues, blah, blah, blah. So the following graphs are some of the most, damning results that he shows to people, and it convinces people of global warming. So if you knew nothing else about global warming except this one part, it's basically enough to say global warming is a hoax by itself, regardless of everything else.
That's the conclusion that I come to. When I see that the only way that you can prove global warming is to manipulate the data, that disproves it 100%.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that you can convince anybody. If you actually presented that information to Al Gore, other than the fact that Al Gore is a psychopath, and he's not going to care what anybody has to say about anything. I think that if you showed that information to Al Gore, there's no way that he could turn around and say, "Yeah, this is valid information," right?
Yeah, global warming is it requires as much faith as it does to be Christian.
Yeah.
Which is we can't prove God.
I think that is the conclusion. It's hard to come to any conclusion but that one.
Actually, Davey, let me veer off for a second. There's a climate scientist named Roy Spencer. He's a climate skeptic, and something interesting that he said was that I think he was in front of the Senate, and they tried to disprove him by saying, "Hey, aren't you someone who believes in creation?" And his response was that the probability of life randomly generating itself is so bad that he said he could argue a case that it's way more likely that a God exists and created life rather than it randomly. It'd be like going to someone told me, and I haven't verified this, but someone told me that the statistics are equivalent to if you just went to a random, galaxy, random planet, found an island, and found like a B-57 bomber or something, like that had just been generated exactly in that way by the universe. Like the universe created that, and it just plopped it there. That's how likely it would be for life to get automatically, or if the universe created life, that's about the same probability.
But if you believed in the multiverse, which I'm not sure if you do, but if you believe, like string theory, like if you believed in the multiverse, the assumption is that there are an infinite number of universes. And what that also means is that every single possible universe that could exist does exist, right? That means that another universe might be exactly like this one, except the shoes that I'm wearing are not blue, they're black. And that's the only difference in the entire... And then every infinite possibility there like has to exist if you believe in the multiverse theory. What are your
not
feelings
only does it
on
exist, not only does it exist, Davey, it exists infinitely number of times.
that? Yeah. Well,
It's a little bit ridiculous.
That's the nature of infinity.
Yeah. Well, there's different sizes of infinity, but if you mean big infinity, then it'd have to include it. Everything.
So back to related to the random B-52 bomber that you found on some random island that was just randomly there, in working order, made by the universe by randomness, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you believe in the multiverse? Because if you do, you would have to believe that could exist.
Well, I think that if it has to be able to exist, and I think it has to have non-zero probability, and I think that might be a zero probability.
Sure.
Like, I don't know what would create a B-52 bomber. Like, if you can show that a certain asteroid hitting and then another one hitting and then this and that and some natural process could create it.
I may be oversimplifying the multiverse. I may be using the Flash to base my multiverse knowledge on.
Well, yeah, I mean, okay, if you had a monkey and he just tapped one key every 1 second, then at some point, if he did that infinity times, somewhere in there, in that string of characters, that infinite string of characters, you'd have the entire works of Shakespeare.
Yes.
That's like a pretty
I've
famous
heard that before.
thing. That's similar to what you're saying. In fact, you don't even need the multiverse to do it, Davey. If you just say that this universe is infinite, then
that exists
you also
somewhere.
get that.
I'm not sure that anybody believes that this universe is infinite.
I think if you believe in the Big Bang, then I think you don't believe that it's infinite because it's finite.
It came from a single point.
It's almost, yeah. Well, they say it's an infinite amount of material packed into an infinitesimally small point.
Yes.
But I don't think they mean infinite material because I think when it exploded, they talk about the finite amount of material that's
in
there.
The universe.
Which is also weird to hear scientists say there's an infinite amount of material when that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But they do say that.
Well, I think that from the perspective of a human, it might as well be infinite because we just can't even comprehend like what those numbers mean.
You'd be surprised how much we can comprehend. There's some big numbers. Like we have in math, we use numbers way bigger than the number of particles in the universe. Not that we can really imagine it, but we can, there's ways of imagining.
We can conceptually imagine infinity. We just can't really like realistically imagine what infinity really looks like, I think.
So getting back to this article, if you kind of look at some of these graphs, like the first graph and the second graph, before the data adjustment, after, they're trying to make it, what is this, making it colder? Well, it looks like at 1980, do you see that drop before adjustment?
Let's see. You looking at like a graph or something?
Yeah, like look at part 10 of this article and then go to the first graphic. Before the data adjustment, it goes down in 1980 until 1990.
Yeah.
Significantly, like 1 degree Celsius.
Okay.
But the adjusted makes it go exactly the opposite direction.
Yeah. The 1980.
And interestingly, look, it's almost an inverse. It looks like from 1940 to 1960, they kept that the same. But if you look at almost the rest of the graph before that, it's like on the adjusted, it starts low and goes to high. And before the adjustment, it starts high and then generally declines.
Yeah, everything seems okay until it looks like more like 1970. So like 1970 or so, maybe 75. They just started manipulating the data so that now it looks like it's doing this. It's going up, where the actual data has it coming down from 1970 to 1980. So
this is just one data source. But mind you, they adjusted it to this decreasing one, and then they put it into this increasing one, I should say, the after. and then they put that into the rest of the conglomeration of their data.
Yeah.
So they did that for
So essentially,
Palma.
all of their findings are false. That's what I take from that.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the next one, this is Iceland. After data adjustment, starts low, goes high. Before data adjustment, goes up, goes down, goes up. Pretty,
Yeah, I mean, it is on an upward trend right
Inconclusive.
now, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything.
No.
It goes up and down all the time. As you can see from the year 1900, it's gone down and up and
Darwin,
down
Australian.
and up and down and up.
Yeah.
It's
Darwin,
all over the
Australia.
place.
Up to down generally. After adjustment, down to up. Same with Chile. Actually, Chile goes up until 1960 and then drops way back down, almost to the original in 1980, and then goes back up. That's the original, whereas the adjusted is up and up and up and up.
This really just tells me don't trust any of that data, because you can't take the raw data and then just change it because it doesn't agree with what you're trying to prove. That's not how
This is
science
very
works.
damning. If this is true, this is incredibly damning for global warming.
Absolutely. I think that if any scientist saw that information and then they concluded that the information was valid, I think that they need to have their credentials pulled. There is no reason that a scientist should say, yeah, I believe this information, even though half of the data, like the only reason that the data lines up with your conclusion is because we manipulated the data. If you're manipulating the data, that's not real data.
Yeah.
You
Well,
can't base anything
get
on that.
good
And all of
conclusions.
these, like Neil deGrasse Tyson is out there talking about how everybody agrees that global warming is a thing and that it's not a hoax, and anyone who disagrees is an idiot. But are you looking at the actual data, Neil deGrasse Tyson? Are you looking at the actual data? Or are you looking at what 700 people have lied to you about? Over the course of the many years that this data has been out there, are you just believing the conclusions, or are you actually trying to figure this out for yourself?
The thing is about the data is that if you start wrong, it's very difficult to end right.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
you can't start with incorrect. It'd be like saying, I'm going to assume that Jesus lived and died on a cross, and then I'm going to check if he walked on water. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just saying you start with like assumed data, and then you make a conclusion. Oh, well, he was the savior of the world.
Yeah.
But you have to. I mean, your data has to be correct, or obviously in religion's case, it's faith, but you have faith for that stuff.
But I think that's also the case with global warming, with climate change, human-caused climate change.
I guess a better example.
It's about as faith-based as Christianity.
Yeah, because it's the conclusion is what they have faith in, regardless of the data that got them there, and that's kind of what I was trying to get at. It's like, well, we believe this end goal, but it's because we just believe this other stuff blindly too.
Yeah. So, Greg, I wanted to ask you this question. It's kind of unrelated to anything like in the news or whatever. But what do you think makes the difference with children? Like in what am I trying to say? So in a kid being successful, being well behaved, all those things. What do you think the main contributor is to a child's success in life?
Parents,
right?
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I were talking about this the other day, and I made this statement. I believe that because I have kids and they're all really well behaved. They're really good. I was trying to figure out with my wife what makes the difference, because like a lot of kids just suck, and it seems like you and I, Greg, we've kind of figured it out where like our kids are sweet. They're nice. They're not doing crazy stuff. They're not into weird stuff. They're just nice, you know? And what makes that difference? In my opinion, the number one most important decision that went into that was the decision for my wife to stay home. The reason that my kids are the way they are is because my wife stays home with them. She's able to be a parent to them at home. What do you think about that?
I think you have a good point. It gives parenting consistency. For example, you don't get like a nanny that has one way of parenting essentially versus, and then, you know, you guys come home and have a different way. And then, you know, so I think there's a consistency problem when you don't have your wife stay at home or someone stay at home.
Yeah.
But I think that it's largely parenting style too, because I know a lot of, and I don't think any one style of parenting is the right way. For example, I think you and I have pretty differing ways of doing it.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But I think they both work, whereas I see couples that have kids, and one of the main things to me is just how much do you let your kids walk all over you?
Yeah,
if your kids
I know
feel
a
like
lot
they
of
own you?
I know a lot of families that have stay-at-home parent, at least one stay-at-home parent. Not parents. That would mean that they probably didn't have a home.
Trust fund babies.
But I know lots of families that have a stay-at-home parent and their kids are out of control, like crazy, like crazier than the kids that are raised by daycare. So obviously it's not just the fact that, you know, their mom is staying home. It's the fact that their mom is staying home and is a part of their lives, and you know, wants to help their kids succeed, wants to teach their kids. Like, there are a lot of people out there, a lot of men especially, that say, "You stay home. Aren't you just like relaxing all day?" It's like, if you saw what my wife was doing, you would not think that. You know, she works very hard. She worked harder than I do. You know, I would prefer going to work because it's more relaxing than what my wife goes through at home.
Well, I've been sick lately, and I told my boss, you know what? I'm just going to come in. It's way more relaxing to come into work than.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I believe that. I think that there are a lot of men out there that would say, you don't do anything. You just stay home. That's all you do. And
but
I think
some
that
women
may
do.
be true for some women.
And
I don't think that
and those are the kids you're talking
mom
about.
gives you the right to just sit on your ass and do nothing all day.
Yeah.
I think that you need to work and you need to like be a productive member of society. If you're just sitting on your ass and watching General Hospital all day, that is not a productive member of society.
Well, and what does that mean that your kids are doing? That means that your kids are watching Little Mermaid on repeat. You know what I mean?
That's exactly what it means.
And so who are their parents?
Well, you might as well just go to work and let your kids watch the tablet at daycare.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really know why I got into that subject, Greg. It's just because Kelly and I were talking about it maybe like last night or something like that. And I was like, I'm going to bring that up on the podcast because I think that like the number one most important decision that made the difference was for my wife to stay home. But that doesn't just give her a free pass to sit on her ass all day. That was the point that I was making. It's like,
and she obviously
being
doesn't.
a stay-at-home parent and being a homemaker is more than just staying home and making sure the kids don't, you know, fall down the stairs. There's a lot more to it than that. It actually takes actual parenting.
Yeah, I agree. But I think parenting style is a pretty big factor. I mean, I personally take the I don't get involved unless I need to approach. That might be because I'm a little bit lazy. And I know you're more of a helicopter person. Like
I'm way more helicopter than you are, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I let my kids fall and get hurt. I think that's good for them. But if they're doing something inappropriate, they know there's a cause and effect for whatever they do. And I think it has to do with consistency for enforcing those. So if you grab a toy from your sibling, there's a consequence for that. And it's related to what you did. And eventually you'll learn that, you know, you get punished in a certain way for doing certain things. And so and that leads to better behavior, I think.
Yeah, I think that the number one mistake that parents make is lack of discipline, either lack of discipline or the wrong kind of discipline. Like you can't like hit your kids. I don't think that is. I mean, I think that a spanking every now and then, like there are certain things that a kid should be spanked for. Like if a kid goes and like punches his brother or his sister in the face, yeah, he probably deserves a spanking. Okay? But that's not what I'm talking about.
Do smack. We do not hit in this family.
Well, I know for a fact that my kids don't need to be spanked, and they still do what I want them to do.
Yeah, me too. I when I was a worse parent, when I first had my kids, I would spank my kids or like slap them on the hand. I never spanked them, but I slapped them on the hand.
I used to spank my kids a lot. My two older kids, I used to spank my kids a lot because I didn't know how to be a parent.
Yeah, I haven't touched my kids in 3 years probably.
Yeah.
It's just you. Like
what's interesting about that is I talked to my daughter who just yesterday had her 9th birthday, and she remembers to this day. She remembers when she was 2 and 3 years old, and she would get in trouble and she would get spanked. She remembers. She brings it up today. She talks about how she got in trouble when she was 2 years old, and I can't believe that. You know, it breaks my heart when she talks about how I treated her sometimes. Where like I would never do that today, you know. It's not like I was like super mean to her or anything, but it's just I just didn't know how to be a parent. I think patience is the number one thing.
The interesting thing, Davey, is that I did that to my eldest, Savannah, and she might remember. I don't know. She hasn't said anything yet, but I get the same behavior benefits that she has
with the other two,
with the other ones, which I never touched.
Spanking.
Exactly. So it's a case study that shows that spanking and slapping on the hand don't necessarily produce results. And I think that consistent, accurate discipline is way better than physical violence.
So what do you think the reason is that there are kids out there that have no discipline?
Their parents let them do whatever they want. I think it is. I think it's... Our little sister used to get macaroni and cheese, you know, in addition to whatever was made for dinner. It's like we made something for dinner and, she won't eat it. And I know she won't, so I made her macaroni and cheese. Well, guess what? My kids, they just don't eat.
Yeah.
And they say, I'm
That's
hungry.
The same with us.
We left your food out. Your food, we didn't throw it away. Your food is still there. If you're actually hungry, you will eat that.
Yeah,
you can have a snack. You can have fun things. You can have like dessert and stuff like that, as long as you finish your dinner. They know this.
It's interesting.
They don't even ask.
In order to have the ice cream, you have to eat that, and you weren't hungry until we were going to have ice cream after dinner. But now all of a sudden you're hungry. Well, go eat your damn dinner.
And a lot of times they do.
Yep, they actually
and my kids,
will
they don't even
they want
ask.
ice cream.
They don't even ask if they can have ice cream when we bust out the ice cream if they didn't finish. In fact, if someone's trying to get it, they police each other. They say, "Hey,
what's funny about my kids is they'll then try to negotiate. They'll be like, "Okay, Dad, how many more bites?"
Yeah. Well,
like,
I say you have to finish the whole
your
thing.
plate, and then they'll finish half of it. And they'll be like, "Is this enough?" You know, it's like, no. I said, eat everything on your plate, and because if you're still hungry for ice cream after you're done with everything on your plate, then you can have it.
I think that's really good for kids, Davey. I think that consistency and not bending to, I don't never bend. I do bend sometimes, but generally speaking, my kids know that once I say something, that's law. Another thing, though, is that I learned is that, at least for me, I don't try to command them. I don't try to force them to do everything that they do. So if they, I try to give them as much choice as I can within reason. So it's like I ask them what they want to do today, and I usually say yes if they're doing it, if they're being good, and if they ask nicely. If they ask nicely, I will pretty much let them do whatever they want. But when it comes to, I need you to clean up, and that's part of your responsibility to help clean up, there's no leeway there. I mean, if you're not going to help, then you're not going to get the benefit.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's right. Anyway, let's shift gears a little bit. Okay, so over the past several weeks, we've been talking a lot about hoaxes, like Trump hoaxes, like people drawing a swastika on the wall and then taking a picture of it and then saying a Trump supporter did it, even though it was that same person that actually probably did it.
Yeah.
Right? So there's this article. It was on Breitbart, and I know Breitbart's fake news, but
Once again, fake news.
but okay. So Breitbart had this article. A man who claimed to have been the victim of a racist hate crime actually hoaxed the incident, writing N-word lovers on his own garage door. Now, this is a white man. I'm looking at a picture of him right now. This is what Democrats do. This is what the left has been doing. I mean, we talked about it last week. We talked about it. We've talked about it so many times, where the only examples that the left have of this happening are examples where they made it up in order to sell that story. I think that it's ridiculous. So this white guy, goes with a paint can, with a spray paint can, and writes the N-word on his garage door. What is the reason that they keep doing this? I don't understand.
Pretty racist.
What do they think they're gaining? Because it
Victim
inevitably
points.
always comes out that they were lying. So what are they gaining from doing this?
Davey, even if it doesn't come out even if they don't come forward and say, I did this, there's still, I don't know if there's even a single incident where it was proven that it was a Trump supporter that did whatever they said that the Trump supporter did.
Yeah, I've not seen one case. Because if there was one case where it was beyond the shadow of a doubt, like, provable.
Oh my gosh.
I don't think I've seen one case. If there were,
he begged
CNN
for money.
would be all over it. MSNBC would have reported on it.
Dude,
There's nothing.
Did you read this article?
I did, yeah.
He begged for money.
I know
With
they
this
did a
posted.
GoFundMe page. And they got like tens of thousands of dollars.
Oh my gosh. So you just answered your own question why they do it.
Well, yeah. I mean, the reason that these guys did it was for money. But for
That's
what purpose?
insane.
Like, what did he need the money for anyway, right?
It's
for
funny
a
that he
can
says,
of paint to paint over it?
Davey, it's crazy that he said the kids won't be able to have anything under the Christmas tree due to this horrible act. What, because he had to paint the garage door to fix it? Like, is that what he's implying?
What, is
Like,
the
it's gonna cost
KKK
me-
at your house now, bashing your door down? Is that what's happening? I don't understand. What is the purpose of this story? Why did this guy do that? It's because there are
Money.
no examples of people doing things like this. And so in order to get you to believe that there are people doing this, they go out and do it and then claim that somebody else did it. I can't believe it's still happening. It's still happening. It's happening every single day. There's another story like this.
Trump supporters are horrible as long as, I mean, there's no Trump supporters doing this, but they're saying we're horrible, so we must be doing it? I mean...
So speaking of Trump and and his policies, so Mexican man, and this is from the Wichita Eagle. Mexican man charged with rape had 19 deportations and removals. I think that he had voluntarily deported himself a handful of times, maybe 8 or 9 times, and he was forcibly removed from this country another 10 times. Why do you think he has needed to be deported 19 times, Greg?
No wall.
Exactly. No wall. There's no way that this guy would have been back in our country if there was a wall stopping him from getting back.
And the associated proper border control.
My wife and I were just looking at all these all these stories about sex trafficking. It's like a new thing that the cartels are involved in. I think there are just like these random Hispanic ladies going out there and just taking kids off the street right in front of their parents. It's happening all the time. There's stories like every few days. These 2 Hispanic ladies picked up. There was that one. I mean, this isn't a kid, but there's that 34-year-old mom from Southern California, where 2 Hispanic ladies captured her 3 weeks before Thanksgiving, and tortured her for 3 weeks, and then for whatever reason they let her go, or maybe she escaped or something like that, and they found her on the side of the road. Like, this is happening a lot more lately, I think. At least it's in the news a lot more than it used to be. What's going on with the cartels?
I mean, the amount of things that happen in the news is not indicative of what's happening in the country, in my opinion. For example, black people are not getting shot all the time by cops, but, 5 people got shot, so that's all we look at in the news.
I think that we need a wall. This proves that we need a wall. This guy got into our country 19 times, and we deported him 19 times. This is a criminal. He's a rapist. This is exactly what Trump is talking about. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about the average Hispanic person, okay? He cares about the rapists and murderers and gangsters and evil people that are coming into this country. There are people just taking kids off the street. That story I was telling earlier about that lady in Guatemala, there was this lady at like a swap meet or something like that who like ran a booth, and she had her baby in like a carrier or whatever, and this lady just walked up, grabbed the baby, and walked away. And just walked away. And 10 seconds later, the lady realized it, lady got away. Now granted, she did eventually get caught because they had her on camera. And the baby was reunited with the mom in that case. But
yeah,
look at how many missing persons cases there are in the United States. And tell me, how many of those children, how many of those, teenagers or young adults, ladies, are currently being forced to have sex with people for money on behalf of the cartel?
So let me ask you this, Davey.
Mexican cartel that we're trying so desperately, that the left is so desperately trying to enable by saying, we're not going to build a wall. We need open borders. Do we really need open borders when we have people walking across the border 19 times?
Let me challenge you a little bit, Davey. Let's see how you respond to the left's argument, because I've heard it. I'll just see what you say. I'll play the devil's advocate. So first of all, this guy's lawyer said Donald Trump can build a wall 100 feet high, 50 feet deep, but it's not going to keep family members separated. So if someone is deported and they have family members here, they will find a way back, whether it's through the air, under a wall, through the coast of the United States.
Well, it's going to make it a lot harder for them.
Okay.
I mean, that's one
Second
thing.
point. Okay. Second point. It's
not going to be easy for them to get here like it is now, where they just literally just walk across the border. This guy just walked across the border 19 times, and we don't care.
Here's another thing, Davey, is what they say. The crime statistics of illegal immigrants are not statistically different or worse than citizens.
Is that accurate, though? Is that actually true?
I'm pretty sure that's fairly accurate. So what do you say to that?
I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. Is there a drug cartel ran in the United States not by the Mexican drug cartel, not by El Chapo and things like that?
Do we have
is there some cartel we don't know about?
I don't know about a drug cartel.
Because I'm pretty sure that the people that are coming into this country, now I'm not talking about your average illegal alien, okay? I'm talking about people who live in Mexico, who make money by trafficking drugs and children and human trafficking. I'm talking about those people. So those people are what we need to stop immediately, now, like yesterday. We need to stop that from happening before we even look at what we're doing with illegal immigration. Because I think that if you look at the average person, yeah, I think you're probably right, that the amount of crime that the average illegal alien commits is probably not any more than the average citizen of the United States commits. I could be on board with that. I don't know if that stat is accurate, but let's just go with it. Let's say that that's accurate, okay? Let's say that that's true. I don't think that Mexican people are more prone to commit crime than any other person, but I do think that because we have open borders, because it's so easy to get across that border, that the people that are making money off of the criminal aspects of it, I think that those are the people that we're trying to prevent from coming in here. I mean, of course we don't want the people that are taking the low wage jobs and things like that. But that's a separate issue. I think that mainly what Trump is talking about is the Mexican gangsters and the Mexican cartel and the Hispanic ladies that are coming in and kidnapping people and then drugging them up and then selling them as sex slaves. I think that that's what we're trying to stop from happening. That's the number one priority on the southern border. And by the way, Syrian refugees. What's stopping the Syrian refugees from just coming into Mexico and coming straight through the border? What's stopping them from doing that?
Yeah, I'm here. I mean, I don't know if a wall is the answer, but I think that illegal immigration is a problem. I think people that say what I had just argued, it's kind of a stupid argument, because even if it's true that they're committing exactly the same crimes at the exact same rates, we still don't want them here. I mean, we still don't want...
I mean, there's other detriments to them being here, like them taking low-wage jobs from the 5 million unemployed Americans today.
Well, the overwhelming majority of people on welfare disproportionately are,
Black and Hispanic.
Black and Hispanic and other minorities.
Yeah, it's mostly minorities, which is, but I think that is what the plan is. So I think that Obama,
they also don't speak English. Like, there's a lot of problems with having people come here illegally. They don't speak English. They don't care about our culture. They don't want to be Americans. They just want to live in America because they think it's going to be better for them.
Because their life is going to be better. Because they think their life is going to be better.
Well, and it is, because we have a welfare state, and they can work for more than they could make in Mexico and probably not pay any taxes and also not have to worry about drug cartels coming and killing them.
You know what? They could probably
there's a lot of benefits to living in America
from our system that would make them more money than a good paying job in Mexico. They probably get paid more because of the difference between the US dollar and the peso. So they get paid more by just being on welfare in the United States than they would by working in Mexico. So what is?
But can they get welfare?
What is the disincentive from doing that? We're not trying to stop them from having an incentive to do that at all. We just need to build the wall and get over it.
I think that illegal immigration wouldn't be such a big problem if we just had no welfare state. If we didn't have welfare, then that would solve so many problems. I mean, welfare is the worst possible program, especially for poor people. It touts itself as something that's going to fix all the poor's... Well, I don't think it touts itself as something that fixes all their problems, but it keeps them alive, it keeps them well, it keeps them happy.
More importantly, it keeps them voting Democrat.
But regardless of that, Davey, yes, it does, okay. But I think that welfare is actually the worst possible thing you can do for a person. If you... It takes away their drive. Let's say you moved from Washington State down here to California, and I'm fine. I have my job. Let's say I have enough money to pay for your rent, and so you come down here, and I say, you know what, Davey, I feel bad for you. You're poor. You don't have a job. You came down here with nothing. I'll start paying your rent, and I'll buy you food. So what do? You don't go find a job,
and then I put my heels up, and I start watching TV all day. That's what happens.
Yeah, and the drive to better yourself and be a more marketable person in the workforce, and have some sort of drive to make money and be part of this economy, you're dead in the water.
Absolutely.
It's like if you teach a man to fish, you feed him for life. Give a man a fish, feed him for a day.
Yeah.
Teach a man to fish, feed him for life. And I think what you're doing by giving welfare is giving a man a fish.
Yes.
Which is good. He needs fish, but it's not good because he didn't learn how to fish instead. And I have a friend at work who says, well, how could you can't just say we're abolishing welfare because all these people are going to live on the street. You'd be surprised. I don't think they are. I think they're going to...
They'll figure something out.
They'll figure something out. Some of them might end up on the street.
It's not just going to be tomorrow that they just end up on the street.
No, I never said to do that either. My idea, the way to get rid of the welfare state is to slowly wean people off and give them a deadline too. So you start reducing... You say, in 3 months, we're going to start reducing it every month over the next 9 months by exactly 1/9. So within 1 year,
that's not a bad
you're
idea
off.
for welfare in general, because I think that there are certain cases where welfare is necessary. Like,
Yeah,
you
sure.
know, if we talked about like when 20 million people are out of work because of automation, for example. Like,
Yeah.
I think that welfare is going to be necessary for some people sometimes.
As long as
maybe
there's
not
a
necessary, but
disincentive
it would be
to
helpful.
stay on welfare.
It would be helpful, at least, to be
Yeah.
able to allow people to get another job, to have time to go find, to be able to feed their families in the meantime.
Yeah, Davey, I mean, don't you agree that if you do have welfare, you have to have a persistent disincentive for people to stay on welfare?
Well, what
It
if
has
you,
to
what
be
if you did it
bad
this way?
to stay on welfare.
Your welfare is 100% of whatever it is for the first 90 days. And then every 30 days thereafter, it's reduced by 5%. And by the
Yeah.
time you get down to zero,
That's beautiful.
you better figure it out. Because if
Yep.
you don't figure it out, you're done. Your
And I
welfare's
bet
done.
you 95% of people will figure something out. We're humans. We're not, we're not dogs. We know things. We have intelligence. And we know if we know about the deadline and we know what's happening to our income over time, it's giving us more and more incentive to go out and
We have an
Make
instinct
something.
for survival. Right now,
But we're also
these
intelligent
people that
enough
are
to
relying on
join the
welfare,
economy.
that is their way to survive.
yeah.
But if you took away their ability to collect welfare, they would figure out another way to survive.
They might start, doing something that they didn't necessarily want to do, but it's going to help the economy. They might start mowing lawns when they didn't want to, and they might make a little less than they would have had they been on welfare. But what this does is allows you to tax people way less. I think you still tax people for welfare as long as there's a disincentive to get off. I mean, there's an incentive to get off of welfare. I think that would be
like in the
incredible.
same way that unemployment is not permanent. You get it for like 6 months or something like that. They don't
Yeah.
just pay you for the rest of your life because you lost
Yeah, they
your
don't just
job.
say, "Oh, you make, not enough money, we're just going to pay you."
What
they
is
don't
the
do that.
difference
I mean, they
between
shouldn't.
welfare and unemployment? I don't understand the difference between welfare and unemployment, because unemployment is supposed to help you get back on your feet, get another job, so that you don't have to keep relying on that. So
It's what welfare
how does
should
one
be.
qualify for welfare, and how does
you
one
don't make enough
qualify
money.
for unemployment? I don't understand why they're different. Aren't they the same thing?
No, I mean, unemployment is you had a job and then you lost your job, and I believe you paid into the unemployment, fund. So it kind of pays for itself because people are paying into it and then they're using it. But it's a general fund. It's not your own fund. It's just you paid
like Social
unemployment
Security.
taxes. Yeah, but so for welfare, they say, do you make under a certain amount of money? Okay, we'll pay you a certain amount of money, and we'll give you benefits like medical benefits and food stamps and actual money based on your income, which is really bad.
So-
I think
but
it
they-
should
they put 'em on
essentially
programs
be
like Medi-Cal and things like that.
yeah, but it should to make it better and to make it so people aren't staying on that indefinitely. You would make it so that they, just like what you were saying, there's incentive to get off. 5% every 30 days. That's fine by me. I'll pay for it for 2 years. Fine, but after 2 years, you're on your own. And what that lets you do is reduce the taxes for everyone else, and it gives people an easier time starting a company or, making ends meet on a little bit worse of a job. Like you just make everyone's life easier by taxing less. So by taking away welfare, you get these people into the economy so the pie is bigger. And everyone else who's part of the pie already has a little bit less stress on them. It's just a win-win for pretty much everyone except the lazy people who don't want to do anything, at which point you'll live on the street, and I think I'm fine with that. If you're willfully, choosing to just be a slug, then you can be a slug. Because guess where slugs sleep?
In today's day and age, we have a job for you, even if you're disabled. So that's not a good excuse.
There's all sorts of jobs. And you don't have to be
like, for example, my job doesn't require me to do anything but sit at a computer and type. So if you have arms and you have eyes, you could do my job. Physically,
but your job does require knowledge. But other jobs really don't require much knowledge. You just need to apply for 1,000 jobs and you'll get one. It's a numbers game. If you want a job, apply for 1,000. After you apply for 1,000, you'll probably get one.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that.
If you're more skilled, you could probably apply for 100 and get one. I've had about 5 or 6 legitimate jobs. I'm talking about like non-subway jobs, non-high school jobs, real jobs. I've had like 5. And I usually have to apply to 200 jobs before I get one. It's a numbers game.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway,
somebody's gonna need the skills that you're offering. You just have to apply to enough.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably good for this episode, Davey. Thank you, audience, for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, comment. Tell us how moronic we are.
Let your friends know about our podcast.
Yes.
The only way to get the word out is if you guys get the word out for us. So share as much as you possibly can.
Yes, and also we are going to be doing 5-minute short videos on some of the topics that we discuss, just so we have a little bit easier to share content.
Yeah.
So keep a lookout for that. And
also, if you have any suggested topics for us, if there's anything that you think that we're not covering that we should cover, let us know. Send us a comment, and we'll try to talk about it.
Also, if you think that we're not presenting the opposite case and that we're in an echo chamber, then let us know. Give us some sources. We'll read up. Give us your argument. We'd love to handle your argument.
If you feel like you would like to debate some of these topics with us, let us know. We'll get in contact with you and we'll have you on the show. We'll have you in by phone.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And I don't think that any position is insurmountable. So I don't think that everything that we believe is necessarily exactly the truth. But I do believe that, we have good reasons to believe what we believe, and obviously we believe it more than the opposition. But if you think we're not presenting the opposition or we're just ridiculously wrong, you have the power.
Yeah,
take
just
us
let
down.
us know. All right.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year.